Welcome to UK Property Accountants. My name is Richard Siddons and I'm an associate at UKPA. Today I have with me my colleague Srijan Gautam, who is a manager in the accounts team. Welcome, Srijan.
Thank you, Richard.
Today we're going to be taking a look at service charge accounts. Let's get started, Srijan, by talking about what service accounts actually are.
So service charge accounts are a set of accounts that are prepared on behalf of a residential management company. So before we get into that, let's understand what a residential management company is. So a residential management company is a company set up by the leaseholders, or let's say property owners of a block of flats. So what they do is there are common spaces within the block, for example, lifts or gardens for that, say, or the roof itself. So these needs repairing in a set amount of time. So what they do is they estimate what those expenses are going to be. Let's say for 1 year, like they need to do maintenance like throughout the year or maybe after 2 years. So then estimate a budget of what the expenses are going to be, and they divide it among all the leaseholders in the block of flats. So based on that, they prepare a set of accounts of where the expenses are incurred and where they are coming from. So at the end of every year, they prepare a set of accounts that shows that these are the expenses we have incurred for the common spaces, and these are the income that we have collected from you, and this is the remaining amount.
Oh, so like the amount of money that's sort of held in reserve for the following year.
Yes. So these may represent the remaining amount, or these may represent things like, for example, the roof may require maintenance in 3 years, but the lift may require an annual maintenance. So for roofs, they may estimate an amount that is to be paid after 3 years. Then they may divide it into, let's say, 36 months, and they may take the service charge as per that each month.
Srijan, who needs service charge accounts?
Okay, so the service charge accounts has a lot of beneficiaries within them. So first might be the property owner, the second might be the leaseholder or the freeholder, and the third might be the property management company, in case the property management company also handles the flats themselves, or let's say the block as a whole. So the property management company generally manages property, but when there are a lot of flats in there, the RMC might say, you have a look at this set of flats. So in that case, they appoint a property management company there. So generally speaking, but the ultimate responsibility of the service charge accounts belongs to the RMC and the directors within the RMC. Generally, who are the directors within the RMC is decided by the flat owners or the leaseholders themselves. It's among them who is the director and takes the responsibility of being a representative of the RMC. So the RMC produces the service charge accounts generally within 6 months of the end of the year and presents it to the leaseholders, freeholders. Sometimes it requires to be certified. Sometimes it may not be required to be certified. So that depends on the situation there and the leaseholder agreement and things like those.
Okay, so essentially what you're saying is that if you've got like a large estate of apartment blocks where there may be 80 or 100 or even 300 apartments, that can be a headache for the residential management company, the RMC, to put together all the accounts. So they appoint a property manager for that.
Yeah. So generally the directors are the shareholders, as I said, but they do not have enough time to manage all those 80 flats, let's say 300, 200 flats. So they give it to the pros who handle it properly, and also they always have the right to get the service charge accounts. So they'll have the things they need at the end of the period. So I think it's a win-win situation in both cases. So it's better to be handled by someone who looks at those, because the property management companies do not look after only one block. They have experiences at looking at similar blocks. So they have a general experience of how service charges should be handled, or let's say preparing budgets well. Like you being a director with no experience might be a headache to estimate the budget of what the expenses are going to be. But when you handle it to the RMC, they might be better at letting you know what the service charge may be.
Who is responsible for running the residential management company? For example, who are the shareholders? Who are the directors?
So the shareholders are among the leaseholders themselves, and the directors is among those shareholders. So they come to one place and decide who the director is going to be, and he'll look after the RMC. So though they may call a separate property management company to look after the service charges and service charge accounts, they may still have a director who will have the ultimate responsibility, or who will be the agent on behalf of the shareholders. So in case the property management company doesn't produce the service charge accounts within 6 months of the end of the year, he may just go and ask them, this is the regulatory requirement. You have to submit us the service charge accounts within 6 months. And he may also, there's one separate statute, that's Section 21 of the Landlord and Tenants Act 1975, which provides the right of the shareholders to ask the certified service charge accounts from the property management company. So
what rights do the residential management company have to collect service charge payments?
On that account, there may be certain circumstances where they have the right to collect service charge accounts. So generally at the start of the year, they provide a budget of whatever they are going to collect during that year. And that budget is normally decided by the directors, the shareholders, and based on that, they collect those service charge accounts. So that is fully on the basis of the leaseholder agreement. The next thing that is itself mentioned in the leaseholder agreement, that you must pay for all the expenses of the common areas. Let's see. Or in third case, there might be a case where the block of flats has not been paying any expenses for, let's say, the roof or the garden or the lift, but someone might be paying on their behalf. So they may come to the RMC and say, I've been paying this for on behalf of the common areas, so we need to collect this as service charge accounts. So on that case, they may collect it for an expense of up to 18 months. So if you have incurred an expense in, say, let's say January 2022, you may collect that expenses up to July
2024.
Yeah, July 2024. So up to that, you may collect those expenses even if you do not within each month. So that's a right that's provided to the RMC. And then there's the normal case of collecting the budget expenses.
What are the rights of shareholders and leaseholders with respect to service charge accounts?
So the shareholders and the leaseholders, as I mentioned, have a right to ask for the certified service charge accounts as per Section 21 of the Landlord and Tenants Act 1975. There's also something called a 6-month rule, which is outlined by the Service Charge Regulations 2003, which mentions that the leaseholders and the shareholders can come to the property management company and demand the service charge accounts within 6 months. So those two are the statutory rights, but again, there are certain terms that might be mentioned in the leaseholder agreement or when they agree with the property management company. So those are typically the rights of the shareholders, leaseholders, and any day they are the shareholders and directors of the RMCs. So
Srijan, you mentioned the certification of service charge accounts. Is it a requirement that service charge accounts are audited?
It depends on the circumstance, actually. So, as I mentioned, when Section 21 of the Landlord and Tenants Act 1975 is invoked, then the shareholders may require the RMC to present the certified service charge accounts. Or when it is mentioned in the leaseholder agreement itself. Generally, in other cases, there is no such statutory requirement, but RICS, or let's say Royal Institute of Chartered Surveyors, recommends that you might need to certify those service charge accounts when it is, let's say, 4 or 5 properties, but it's not a compulsory requirement there. But yes, if it's mentioned in the leaseholder agreement or when Section 21 is invoked by the leaseholders.
Srijan, who can certify the service charge accounts?
So when it says certification, it actually says certified by a certified accountant. So when it says the word accountant, it means either a member of the AEW or ACCA or CIMA. So if you are one of those who is a member of either of the 3 bodies, then you can certify the service charge accounts, because you need to mention that while certifying it. So yeah.
Okay, yeah. Maybe I'll just say to the viewers that we're probably all familiar with those 3 bodies: the Institute of Chartered Accountants in England and Wales, the ICAEW, of course the ACCA, the Association of Chartered Certified Accountants. They're our regulatory body here at UK Property Accountants. So we can do this certification process for you. And of course, the other professional body that Srijan mentioned is the CIMA, the Chartered Institute of Management Accountants. Thanks for all of the information today on service charge accounts. Thanks for your time. Very helpful. If you are maybe a leaseholder in an apartment block and you have to deal with service charge accounts, then please feel free to give us a call, because we can help you prepare or even certify your service charge accounts. We are chartered accountants and we are regulated by the Association of Chartered Certified Accountants. So we are more than qualified to do this work. Please feel free to give us a call and book your free 15-minute discovery call with us today. Thank you for watching.